Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am Piglet here once again, and I'm back for some more yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my Let's Play of Toy Story 2 for the PlayStation, Sega Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, PC, and of course the 2D platformer for the Game Boy Color. I keep on saying Game Boy Advance for some reason, but either way though, whatever. So anyways, last time we have managed to collect every single of those Pizza Planet tokens in Andy's house. It's a very self-explanatory world to start off with, so even then though, just to get used to with the actual 3D exploration, collectathon and all that stuff. So today for this episode is the fact that we're about to be continuing things on and move on to the second level in the game known as Andy's Neighborhood. So that's usually gonna take place in the forms of the gardens themselves, and once again I'm gonna have to skip those little cinematic scenes because of copyright claims and all that stuff, because if I still manage to have those, then I will able to actually get myself some copyright strikes, which is no good. So anyways though, for the majority of this level, as I said before, it's usually going to take place in some sort of in the gardens area. So even then, to be expected at this point that we're going to do with like some usual tasks, and especially noticeable for more obstacles along the way, as well as the forms of specific hazards that we need to avoid, such as the actual mower. But even then though, we'll point things out whenever we get to it though. So as you can see, we need to ground pound those little mole holes, as you can see right there. And every time you do something like that, well, basically this allows you to able to distract the actual green soldiers. So even then, that will be the next collectibles that we need to do for the likes of the NPCs and all that stuff. So yeah, once again we need to grab all 5 of them, and every time you grab all 5 of them, then basically you have to go all the way back to the where the NPC character was, and then just essentially grab the Pizza Planet token. So that's far from the case for the majority of every single world, basically though. So now I don't think they won't be guaranteed to able to get ourselves the actual missing Mr. Potato Head's body parts, because until when we get to level 4, level 7, and especially noticeable with level 10, and I believe level 13, that we do need to able to come across into those Mr. Potato Head's missing body parts. Because of this though, it's going to be a lot of exploration like this. So yeah, obviously today's day is the forms of the 7th of November today, and looks like that tomorrow that the UK version of Mario & Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 is going to be releasing tomorrow. So I'm very excited to able to noticing that, but I will say though is the fact that we're probably not gonna ready to play that game just yet though, because, well, as you probably guys can clearly tell at this point, is the fact that obviously that we need to get back into Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games for just trying to able to actually start fresh again, because of our Wii U save data is being corrupted. So hopefully we can able to get back on track on that. And second is that, well, we'll feel like we're trying to able to save that up until when we get to the point into at the very end of specifically in 2019, specifically something Christmassy, because, well, obviously, do you remember the forms of Christmas 2018 unboxing video? If you want to check that out, basically we have none of those Mario and Sonic items to be around here, unlike the forms of how it does it in, let's just say for the majority of the Mario items in, specifically in 2015 as well as 2016. Christmas unboxing specials and all that stuff. The only thing's exception is, of course, the Sonic items occasionally from the likes of, well, let's just say back in 2015 and 16, but for the majority of them, so far for every single year, all except for 2018 rather, that we didn't have any of the Mario and Sonic items and all that stuff, because hopefully for the sake of time for the forms of this year though, we will at least manage to add both Mario and Sonic items on this year's Christmas. Spoiler warning, for those of you who really want to know what exactly was going to come up from the likes of that specific Christmas special. But either way though, there's going to be some huge major differences from the likes of the previous years than the forms of how it does it on, well, for this year this time around though. But we'll point things out when Christmas is going to come up. So I just want to point things out for you guys out there, because even then I just want to able to point things out, because, and also not to mention though, that the reason why we haven't exactly need to we need to wait for a bit until whenever we decide to try out Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 tomorrow is because, well, we're not exactly ready for that yet, because obviously we need to play a bit of, some more Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the sake of the conclusion of that Let's Play at some form or another, as well as the forms of Mario needs to get back into Super Mario Odyssey, which will, hopefully he'll do that at some form or another. And also another thing is the fact that in our own time, we'll definitely need to complete Luigi's Mansion 3 first, and as well as the forms of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake, before you're able to actually get a chance to play around with, of course, the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. And plus, I think I should probably save that Let's Play up, or we can save up that particular Let's Play until, roughly at the same time as when the Tokyo 2020 Olympics starts. So, keep on saying that for the majority of the sake of the actual parts, but even then I just want to let you guys know about the actual updates for this point, so even then it's a little bit more of a fact. So, as you can see right there, we got ourselves I think this is actually the first Pizza Planet token we've got, and basically in that particular challenge, if you couldn't tell, basically we need to pump up the actual rubber ducky floaty contraption, or in this case the actual a floaty duck on the actual swimming pool. Now once you fill the actual floaty duck up, then it'll automatically get you to the forms of the swimming pool, and then if you get into the forms of the actual floaty ducky, or rubber ducky I should say, there's your chance to able to actually use the ground pound until you get yourselves a little bit of a water momentum, and then that way you're able to actually get yourselves the actual Pizza Planet token. So, self-explanatory, but one thing is kind of weird though, is the fact that I first thought that Buzz Lightyear was not going to be surviving underwater, but apparently he does, because, well, I was considering about the fact that with the actual video game knowledge, or video game logic, about the fact that most electrical toys might actually will start to break a bit if they manage to able to dive in underwater, assuming if they manage to contain batteries and all that stuff. But apparently though, Buzz Lightyear in this game specifically is no exception, so I can't even believe he managed to survive underwater, and plus he has this little the actual helmet on, so at least even then that makes it count. So, but then again, it's just a video game logic per se, but even then it doesn't really bother me that much. So, anyways though, yeah, and if you could tell already, we actually already got ourselves 50 of those coins for, delivering them to Ham and stuff like that, and we'll point things out whenever we get to it in just a moment. As you can see right here, the actual race challenge, as you can see right there, it's exactly the same thing as you normally do it from Andy's house, but the noticeable difference now is of course the forms of the actual track layout. And for those of you probably wondering that I'm actually going to be doing this straight away rather than later on, is because there's actually a strategy that you can able to actually do this really early on compared to the forms of later on throughout the game, because there is actually a power-up that we can able to actually utilize from, but that was until when we get to later on for the sake of this game. But we'll show this little bit, potentially speaking, I just do not know. And basically, the best strategy for this is the fact that I highly recommend you, depends on what angles you're in with the actual movement or the walking movement, basically it's your chance to able to actually keep on, like, blocking RC cars, faster speed, because the more you do it, then you would able to actually conquer the race. So, but be very careful though, because there's actually concrete which allows you to able to get slowed down. So, something's worth mentioning though, and it's actually a lot harder compared to the forms of how it does it on Andy's house for sure. It's most notably because if you somehow accidentally jump over the RC car, and then you somehow manage to able to let him go for that part, he will eventually speed up, and there's no way you can able to catch him up normally. So with that being said, although there is actually a useful power-up though, which we'll probably point things out in during that time period, until whenever we get to the 7th stage, but we're not going to able to show that all for the sake of this Let's Play, because, well, I'm obviously going to do this as in the early point of view, so unfortunately we actually did failed on that, but luckily you can able to try that again, unless if you're able to actually go off screen, and then if you manage to able to meet up with RC Car again, then it will allow you to able to actually just to try that race again. So at least I'm glad that was an option, because either way though, it'll make it incredibly unfair if it doesn't allow you to do so. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get ourselves the next Pizza Planet token from Ham. And, yeah, I think that's 2 objectives done. So I think we actually got about 3 more Pizza Planet tokens left, which there are obviously grabbing every single of those green, green army man, or in this case, well, just green soldier, people and stuff like that for the actual toys themselves. I know it's been such a long while since I actually watched Toy Story 2, as well as the forms of, just the forms of playing this game in general, because, been busy playing through other titles such as although, I mentioned this before already, but I'm going to say that again. Until next week, well, I'll take a break on this game though. I'm actually going to be hopefully trying to finish up with Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz for the Nintendo Wii as long as I can able to get those in time. So, hopefully that'll be the case though, especially— No! No. Oh, screw you, enemy. Screw you. That's the annoying part right there. Sometimes, if you really want to go for the climbing vertical shaft or something like that tree, for instance, well, the annoying thing about this is the fact that, much like in any single retro video games these days, every now and then, is that it contains, a knockback. Oh, jeez, the knockback. If you really trying to climb up these little, vertical shafts until— specifically in this stage, as well as the forms of the future stages where we'll show this off and during at some form or another, but even then that'll be another topic at one point, so— But you get the idea for that little solution right there, so hopefully we'll try this race again, and I'm hoping— although it doesn't take that long to able to actually get used to with that, but if you really want to guarantee you can able to do like my method right there, well, I really recommend you not do it, because, well, sometimes though, if you're off by certain angles with the actual walking movements, as well as from that, most of these enemies will try to able to constantly get in your way sometimes, which— that does really aggravate me, but when you get the hang of it though, it's not too bad. It's just that, well, if you really want to avoid a lot of concrete, which actually slows you down, and— oh Christ, that was close. The first lap wasn't too hard, but until likely in lap 2 and 3, it gets pretty picky though, which especially because of how the fact they need to be extremely dead on with the actual angles with the forms of trying to stop the RC car to begin with, which again, it doesn't bother me that much though, but still. Anyways, yeah, looks like I did fail again, so— but if you want to leave and able to actually try again for that particular race, well, just like the forms from before, you can just essentially just leave off screen, and then obviously the actual the race actually resets. So that's fine all in all, because even then though, that way I can able to retry that again, and plus it doesn't take that long to get to it though, so— and hopefully this will be the 3rd attempt on that specific run, so hopefully we'll get a chance for this point here. By the way, I really love the actual, the soundtrack whenever you're trying to deal with the timer challenges and all that stuff. Oh, it's so nostalgia. Especially noticeable with the most intense boss theme in the PlayStation version, because I will say I prefer the PlayStation soundtrack compared to the forms of how it does it on the N64 version to me. Probably because of how the fact that it's all high quality and everything. And plus, as far as I've noticed, between the forms of the PlayStation version and the forms of how it does it on the N64 version, is that, in the forms of certain bosses, they do manage to have themselves a different boss gauge design, which, we'll point things out whenever we get to it later on though, per se, but, not now though, because even now, we've already just got started with this though, so, So, aside from everything else though, there's only one little bad news about the forms of the actual, Pokemon Sword and Shield game, and that was the forms of the entire Pokédex, although it was a little bit leaked, but, seems at the moment right now, is that the Pokédex is actually a little bit more downgraded compared to the forms of how it does it in the previous generation, specifically on Generation 5, 6, and 7, and the fact of the matter is though, the reason why I'm pointing things out, is that I managed to research on that specific Pokédex, if those who the Pokemon fans were able to notice, is that it was now just only 400 instead of 800 or more, which is pretty disappointing, because even then though, that most other fans out there, while I'm not exactly a huge fan mind you, But for most Pokemon fans, we're expecting to able to carry like more Pokemon and seeing more legendary Pokemons bring back, but for the first time in HD. Like for instance, there was no Celebi to be seen, or even Jirachi, or even Manaphy, Shaman, and there's no Victini or anything like that, which is honestly pretty sad, because I will admit though, I usually really enjoy Celebi as a Pokemon, but even then though, because of how the fact that she's adorable looking and stuff like that, well, apart from the fact that I never actually used her in the actual Pokemon battles whenever I played Pokemon Ultra Moon back in 2017, but I no longer have that because, well, I never actually got far into it though, and plus, I was getting distracted with the forms of other games like Kirby Battle Royale, as well as the forms of Mario Party, the Top 100, so you get the idea for that point. So, and aside from everything else though, there's not much else I can really speak of at this point, I'm afraid, but apart from the fact that whenever eventually when, some new things is going to happen, well, I don't know assumedly for sure. So anyways though, here we go with the next boss. As you can see, we have the Zerg Kite. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about this ever since in the beginning portion of this Let's Play, and that was the fact that you can actually press the circle button, which not only does allows you to able to perform a ground pound when you're midair, but also, if you try to able to walk while simply pressing the circle button, this allows you to perform a spin attack, kind of like how we did on the actual spin attack ability from the Super Mario Galaxy games. But unlike in Super Mario Galaxy where you simply flick the actual Wii remote to able to actually perform attack, instead in this game though you would able to press the circle button. Unless if you play Super Mario Galaxy on the Chinese exclusive console, which is the Maneuver Code Shield. I can't really pronounce that particular console very well for that point. And basically, you utilize the X button instead of like shaking the actual controller. So, but either way though, things is going to be a little bit more sporadic and stuff. And the best strategy for this entire boss fight, as you can see, it always really encourages you to able to utilize the actual spin attack and stuff like that. It does not work on the actual lasers though, but only the spin attack only works. So, but if you somehow manage to able to hold the actual circle button for a long period of time, well, basically you get yourselves like, I would say for about 3 seconds of your spin attack, which I need to able to count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and well, it's only 5 seconds. But if you spin around all the way around for too many times, you get dizzy and you would able to actually get stunned for a few seconds. And look at that. I managed to beat this entire boss fight with almost come towards the actual first death of this Let's Play, which is kind of surprising though, because yes, this game does have the extra life system, just like the forms of how it does in the original Toy Story game, but except this usually takes place in a 3-dimensional platformer instead of in a 2D plane. So, whilst unlike the forms of how it does it on Toy Story 3 video game, it gives you infinite amount of lives, unless if you're able to encourage you with the actual health bar, and stuff like that, just like in this game. But, oh, and same applies with the original Toy Story game as well, but even then I will point things out whenever we are noticing this. So, anyways, let's save our game quickly. It's only like 1 block use on that particular part right there, and, you know, you get the idea for that point. So once we're done with that, we actually access to the next level, which appears to be the actual boss level, which is the Bombs Away. In this particular boss, as you can tell already, is usually some sort of a continuation of the exactly the same area as Annie's neighborhood, although, except we need to take on the forms of the actual boss. So, here we go then. Let's go ahead and take him on. And it appears to be buddy forms of some sort of like a the actual toy plane of any sorts, while at the same time firing the actual, you know, missiles and stuff. So the entire boss fight can be summed up as like this. If you charge your laser charged up, while you simply hold down the square button and let go of it, you can actually perform a massive damage on the forms of this boss. So I definitely recommend you do that though, if you really want to able to get this guy down in the fastest method as possible. I think it only took about like 3 hits every time you do a charged laser attack, which, thankfully, this boss is really easy though. So even then, let's go ahead and take him on for about last hit. And direct hit. Alright. Nice. But eventually at this point until stage 6, 9, and 12, and even especially noticeable in the final level, which is in number 15, some boss fights might actually somewhat dragged on, or in this case, a little bit more tricky and difficult to deal with, which, then again, we'll point things out later on, though, but even then, let's just go ahead and save our game. So, yeah, it looks like so far we've already just collected about 10 Pizza Planet tokens so far, so at least we're not doing that bad. So, and every time you finish one of those boss levels, we actually get ourselves the bonus movie rewarded. So even then, such as this scene right there, which is actually based off from Buzz Lightyear the video game, where Rex usually managed to play that game, but hey, this is a pretty cool movie scene. So, yeah, I guess we'll end things off here. So join me next time on Let's Play Toy Story 2. Here's the fact that we're going to be taking on the forms of the 4th level construction yard. So see you guys then. Later, fellas.